Hi, this is Sandy, and I'm here today to work on some clusters. I've kind of taken a deep dive into clusters here lately. I have never felt like I was good at doing clusters, but I love the way they look when other people do it. So I've been binge watched a ton of different videos with people showing how they make their clusters, and there's a variety of ways out there, so I'm just going to kind of show you what I've come up with. Some of this comes from Corey Dahman. I watched 3 separate videos of hers where she put together different clusters. And so some of the clusters were kind of a square. And her formula is a book page, and then she has a solid piece of paper and a pattern piece of paper. And then you put those together in whatever arrangement you'd like to, and then you decorate the front of it. And so that's what I basically did on these. So you'll see I have the solid paper in the back with the book page. I also decided to put a little bit of texture on mine. I saw some people making their clusters put some texture on theirs, and so this was some cheesecloth I had dyed with distress sprays, and so I use that. This was a stamp I had that I just stamped onto this paper and then tore along the edges with a tear ruler. And then this was a sticker that I had in my collection. Oh, and this was a strip. Sometimes I saw them use strips as well in clusters. So that made my third piece of paper. If you take the Corey's formula, which is basically 3 pieces, and it's kind of a solid, and there was sometimes she would have a light solid, sometimes she would have a dark solid, but she usually had a solid book page and then a pattern piece of paper. This one didn't have a pattern piece of paper necessarily, unless you include this paper in the back as your solid. So that was one cluster I made. This was another one where I have the solid and the pattern paper, and then the book page, and then a ticket I had stamped, and then this was a sticker, a vintage sticker I had that had writing, and I put some of the cheesecloth on this one as well. This one, you could hold it about any way that you want to, but it has the solid paper in the back and the book page, and then a pattern piece of paper. This was a ticket that I had fussy cut out, and then this was just a flower left over from a collection that was really a floral collection. So it didn't, you normally wouldn't think of it necessarily with these more vintage rustic colors, but I thought it looked very nice on there, and it was a cardboard sticker that I had, so I used that on there. My whole idea in doing these things is to use things out of my stash, because I have a lot of little containers. For instance, I'll show you this. These are die cuts from different projects that I have worked on, and I usually end up making more than what I need. Or I have another little bin that's got flower pieces. Like this is a stamp. I mean, like a postage stamp. And then this is a piece of printed vellum. And this was one that I had die cut out for a different project, and then I haven't taken time to color it, but it could be colored. Then there are just random stickers and ephemera out of different collections that I've, made the projects I was going to make with those collections. This was a die cut piece. Anyway, so I have all these random things that don't necessarily go with a particular project right now, but I want to be able to use them. I'm not very good at throwing things away if I think I can use them. So this, for instance, there again, book page, solid page, pattern page, and then I had this postage stamp with a flower on it that I just put in the center. And then I also saw Corey on another video. Some of hers were more of the square shape like I just showed you, and then some of hers were longer strips, and so I played with that a little bit as well. And so this was a paper that I'd laid in the bottom when I was spray painting, using the sprays on the cheesecloth, and so I got a real pattern kind of look on it. So I chose it, piece of tissue paper that I just put on a card to make it a little sturdier. That was Tim Holtz tissue paper. I've got a box of it that I have not used up, although I've had it for years, so I pulled it out again thinking I need to be using it. And then another piece of cardstock paper. And so then that was kind of a formula, and it works in a junk journal. You can make it a side tuck, you can make it a bottom tuck or pocket. And so I played a little bit with that and decorating. So this was a label left over from paper I got years ago. And then the flower was a die cut I had previously done and not used in the project I was working on. So I made that cluster. Then I just decided I would play with making ephemera pieces that could be put on it. For instance, now I wouldn't necessarily put all these on this collection of paper, but I just played with putting different bits and pieces together. So a die cut, a little word strip that was left. This was a label that was stripped from another, that was left from another paper collection, and I hadn't used it. This was a die cut frame. And these were 2 large leaves out of an ephemera. I just inked around the edges, put these 2 little printable labels on it. This was one where I put some cheesecloth in the back. It was another one of the labels that was left. I've got, I have envelopes like this, and it says green labels. I have one that says brown labels. Different colors that across the years, I used to buy a lot of paper collections from paperwishes.com. And you would always get a bunch of labels and everything in there that matched the collection. But I didn't end up using them, but I couldn't just throw them away. A few things that are die cut in here as well. So I thought I want to be going through and trying to use some of those up. So that's what I did. I pulled out the label. I took this ephemera piece that was left over from, and then this, especially for you, was left from another project. Put some cheesecloth that I dyed behind it. And I think that would look really good on that cluster, on that background. And a number of the people that I watched their videos, they showed making a bunch of what they called bases, which this would be your base. And then they come back later and they've got a whole bunch of bases. They kind of mass make the bases. And then they come back later and then they decorate them with ephemera and everything. So this was another kind of experiment. I had this as a piece of scrapbook paper. And then this was very thin packing paper that comes in. Sometimes when you buy something, there's that packing paper that comes, but it's very thin. Well, I just tore it and inked the edges and put it on here for my one of my papers. And then this was off the Tim Holtz tissue paper roll again, and I just put it on another card to make it sturdier, since the tissue paper itself is pretty flimsy. And then this was an ephemera piece out of a collection I had that I just thought it looked really cute on there. You could always put a word or a ticket or something else on here. But I wouldn't necessarily put it on this base, but it's something you put on a base. So then I had another idea. I make a lot of cards. And so I thought, well, you know, we're always putting focal focal images on cards. And so wouldn't that make a cute focal image on a card? And then you could still put your sentiment on here. I can see maybe a circle in this corner with your sentiment on it, or you could do a banner of some type. So then I thought, well, you know, some of these would work too. You could just put them on there and then cut off the top or the bottom so that it would fit in the envelope. But that would make a cute focal image on a card as well. So it's not just, clusters can be used for a lot of different things, not just for junk journals, although that's where I kind of got introduced to them to begin with. See, that would work, and then you just put something, decorate it, and that would work on a card as well. So this is an A2 size base, but you could do larger cards, just make your strips longer. So that's kind of where I'm at with the cluster idea. I'm still playing. I want to come back in another video and use bright colors out of scrapbook collections I have. I thought, okay, if you're going to put it on cards, you might not necessarily want to go with this more vintage theme that you use in a lot of junk journals. You might want to go with some brighter colors. So I'm going to come back and do another video based on that. But I thought I would just kind of show you how I put some of these together. Now for this one, I just did 2 pieces of paper. This is a really funky piece of paper that came out of a scrapbook pad that I got that had hunting and fishing things in it. And my husband loves to hunt and fish, so I do scrapbook pages that deal with him hunting and fishing and pictures of what he's got. And this was part of a 12 by 12 page. And I really couldn't figure out what to do with it. And so it was just in my stash. And I had thought about just using the white side for like stamping different things and fussy cutting them out. But then I thought, well, that would work as a dark on my cluster. And so for this cluster, I only have 2 pieces of paper. But then I had the book page and I had this sticker of the mushroom. I thought, well, that would look really pretty. I actually cut the back. I kind of did it backwards of what I told you earlier, starting with your base, because I actually started with this image, and then I made the scrapbook paper so that it would fit the sticker that I had because it was longer. And then same with this, I cut down this piece of scrapbook paper to fit. But then I was thinking, you know, you really could layer. Clusters are really about doing a lot of layering. So I had this was on the side of a page of some tickets I was fussy cutting out, and there was only, my printer printed it landscape instead of portrait. So I ended up with some labels that that you only got part of the label. But I thought that still could be used if I tucked it in. And so it could fit on the side and add some layer. Then I had fussy cut out some labels that I got. And I thought, well, I could use labels on here. I'm trying to decide which is up and which is down. I could put a label on here, or I could put a smaller label with a number on it. So a lot of what I saw in the decorating and then in the base building too on clusters where people just laid things out and then played with them and decided what they liked. I'm not going to glue this right now. I'm not going to take time to put it together, but you can kind of see the idea behind it and stuff. You could, if you want, like things hanging off the sides, which in a lot of clusters, it's not a square. It's got things, so you could put this hanging off the side. A lot of different ideas on what you could do about that. Oh, and I forgot my white piece of, I do have an extra piece of paper. There we go. I thought, I know I had 3, but anyway, so then I just, this you'll see is a strip. And I have a tear ruler that I got from We Are Memory Keepers. And so I'm looking for a scrap piece of paper that would work. This was an edge off of a edge off of a printable, but you just decide where you want it torn. And it gives you the tear look, but it's not quite as drastic. Sometimes if you tear it yourself, now that paper is not going to do it, but this is tearing very nicely. But there are times when I go to tear a piece of paper. Let's see if this is just a, and now this is going to tear straight too since I'm trying to do it on camera. But sometimes, depending upon the grain of the paper and you tear, you can get some really wonky tears. And so the nice thing about the tear ruler is it gives you the texture and the tear look without it being really random tear. Now, a number of these I did just random tear on my like this one. It ended up, when I tore it, it kind of tore down instead of across. So the top of this is not even. Kind of the same thing with this piece in the back. It tore differently. And that's not, there's nothing wrong with that. That's not a bad look. But if I'm trying to get something to fit a particular size like this, I find it's a lot easier with the tear ruler to get a little more exact where I want it to be. So I think this is where I'm going to end this video on clusters, just talking about my journey in clusters, and kind of what the formula that I kind of found from some of the different videos I watched. There were a lot of different ways to put them together, but this is what I'm kind of playing with now. So I'll come back in another video where I will do some that will be kind of brighter colors and everything out of scrapbook paper, and see what I can come up with clusters for that. So this has really been for me about just playing and trying different things and using what's in my stash instead of just having it sit in a container somewhere. So thank you very much for sticking it out with me to the end. And if you have any other great cluster ideas, put them in the comments below, because I would be happy. This is a new journey for me, trying to figure out how to do it and coming up with something that I like. And sometimes, like this one, it wasn't particularly exciting to me when I got done. There's nothing really wrong with it, but I thought, okay, it's just not kind of the style I would usually go for. But I'm learning as I go, and I'm trying different things, and I think that's, an important thing to do. So thank you for sticking with me to the end. I appreciate it.